Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a total game changer when it comes to learning and memory. If you've ever struggled to literally lock a complex concept into your brain, well, you're absolutely in the right place. We're unpacking a super specific, incredibly effective framework known as the Feynman Catalyst, mastering knowledge through instruction. Now, you might recognize the name. It comes from Richard Feynman, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist famously known as the Great Explainer. He proved that true genius isn't about using fancy, complicated words to sound smart. It's actually about making the most painfully complex subjects, like quantum mechanics, painfully simple. It's just a completely different way to interact with the information we want to retain.
Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever read a really fascinating article, nodded along, felt completely enlightened, and then a friend asks you to explain what you just read? Maybe it's a breakdown of how generative AI works, or you're trying to explain the plot of a deeply layered movie like Inception. And suddenly, you're stumbling. You're searching for words, you start sentences and just kind of can't quite finish them. You find yourself saying things like, well, it's kind of like, right? That incredibly frustrating feeling of being put on the spot and realizing your brain didn't actually save the file. That is exactly what we're going to conquer in our explainer today.
Section 1. The illusion of knowledge.
And this brilliantly illustrates where most of us naturally get stuck. We mistakenly equate the feeling of recognizing information with actually comprehending it. We fall into this massive cognitive trap called passive consumption. The reading, the rereading, highlighting text, listening to lectures. It feels incredibly productive, doesn't it? That's because our brain experiences something called fluency. The information flows in easily, so we trick ourselves into believing it's going to flow out just as easily. But it is entirely passive. To achieve true, unshakable mastery, our source dictates a dedicated shift to active instruction. This means generating the information from your own mind, completely from scratch, organizing it, and delivering it to someone else. We often think just consuming the data is enough, but active instruction is literally the only way to prove you actually own the knowledge.
Section 2. Defining the Feynman Catalyst.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept is that if passive consumption is the root of the problem, this is the formal, structured solution directly derived from our source text. It defines the Feynman Catalyst as the transformative process of mastering knowledge through instruction. Notice that word, catalyst. In chemistry, a catalyst is the specific agent that sparks and accelerates a reaction. While in the context of your own learning, the catalyst for true understanding isn't reading a passage for a third or fourth time. The catalyst is the literal act of instruction itself. The mental heavy lifting required to take chaotic, unorganized information and structure it into a format that you can actively teach, that exact friction is what permanently locks that knowledge into your brain.
Let's look closely at this exact quote from our source text, using the Feynman-like technique of teaching others to master a topic. I absolutely love this because it completely flips the traditional classroom dynamic on its head. We usually think of teaching as a one-way transfer of knowledge, right? Just for the benefit of the student. But here, teaching others is positioned as the fundamental, primary mechanism for the teacher's own mastery. Think about what happens when you have to teach something. Your brain is suddenly forced to find relatable analogies, to strip away confusing jargon, and to build a logical narrative from beginning to end. That intense cognitive strain, that is the literal process of learning taking place in real time. You aren't just teaching to share, you're teaching to learn.
Section 3. The Imaginary Audience Technique.
So the crucial point is how this directly tackles the most obvious logistical hurdle you might be wondering about right now. How do we actively teach others to gain mastery if we're, say, sitting in our room studying completely alone? Well, you explain it to an imaginary audience. This is the ultimate practical hack drawn directly from our source. You don't need a willing friend, a study group, or a classroom full of eager students. You just need to project an audience in your mind's eye and vocalize the concepts out loud directly to them. I know it sounds a little strange at first, but it is deeply, deeply effective.
Let's walk through this incredibly effective four-step sequence. Step 1, you select your topic. Step 2, you summon that imaginary audience. Now pay very close attention to step 3, because this is where the magic happens. Teach the topic. If you're genuinely honest with yourself during this step, you're going to experience a very specific physical sensation. You'll be talking out loud, feeling super confident, and then, boom. You hit a gap in your knowledge. You'll literally hear your own voice physically trail off into silence. You'll stammer. That imaginary audience in your head is going to look highly confused, metaphorically raising their hands and asking you to clarify a specific detail that you suddenly realize you don't actually know. When you begin to stumble over your words in an empty room, your brain instantly recognizes the illusion of knowledge shattering. It hits a wall, and that wall forces you to stop, go back to your source material, simplify, and clarify your thoughts. You repeat this cycle until you can explain it seamlessly from start to finish, which finally allows you to reach step 4, achieve mastery.
Section 4. True mastery through instruction.
Let's see how this all builds and stacks together into a cohesive, highly effective strategy. By making the invisible gaps in our knowledge highly visible to the act of teaching, we permanently alter our level of comprehension. We start at the top with the overarching principle, the Feynman-like technique. We operationalize that principle by teaching others, and when humans aren't around, we utilize the specific, practical application of explaining to an imaginary audience. The end result of this entire structural stack is topic mastery. Every single tier of this pyramid exists to push you out of passive consumption and upward into total, unshakable topic mastery. Every piece directly supports that ultimate goal.
Which brings us to a challenge directly for you. What topic will you teach your imaginary audience today? Don't just passively consume this explainer and move on to the next thing. Pick something you want to know deeply. Close your laptop, stand up, and start talking to the empty room. You will be absolutely amazed at how quickly the illusion of knowledge shatters and how rapidly true, unbreakable mastery takes its place. Thanks for joining me on the explainer today, and happy teaching.